Here's a look at Washington. And the reason we're showing you this is because President Joe Biden has just penned a letter to Democratic representatives on Capitol Hill. And in it, he is reaffirming his commitment to stay in the race and calling on his colleagues to unite behind his campaign. Now, this follows a poor debate performance that left some members of his own party questioning whether he is fit to serve a second term. CBC's Richard Madden is back with more on this story. So let's begin with that letter. Richard, Biden's campaign is trying to end all these questions, answer those questions about his future. What exactly did the president say in this letter?
Yeah, well, this comes ahead of what could be a defining week of his presidency. We're seeing Joe Biden going on offense, posting a defiant open letter to his fellow Democrats to quell what appears to be a growing internal revolt for him to step aside. So in his letter, Biden wrote, and I'm quoting here, "I want you to know that despite all the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race, to running this race to the end, and to beating Donald Trump." Now, Biden also called for party unity in this latest sign of damage control following his disastrous debate performance. The White House initially tried to brush this off as a bad night, a one-off, thinking the story would peter out by the July 4th weekend. But they appear to have underestimated the alarms Biden set off within his own party. So now we're seeing Biden aggressively trying to stop the bleeding. This morning, he really took a page from the Trump playbook and called into his favorite morning show where he seemingly dared any potential leadership challengers to bring it on at the upcoming convention. Watch this.
The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I not only believe that from the beginning, but I wanted to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
So pretty strong message from the president. We've also since learned that Biden worked the phones with Democratic leadership over the weekend to convince them he still has his fastball. Now, it's worth noting the timing of the president's aggressive new outreach comes as Congress is now back in session, the first time since that consequential debate. And Democrats in both the House and the Senate will face relentless questions to publicly say whether they want to keep or drop him from atop the ticket. And so far, at least 5 elected Democrats, mostly from vulnerable swing districts, have publicly called on Biden to step aside, citing his mental fitness and slumping poll numbers. Several major donors are now threatening to pause funding until Biden exits. And over the weekend, top Democrats reportedly had a conference call where more lawmakers calling for Biden to leave was more than the number who want him to stay. And Biden didn't help his cause over the weekend when he told ABC News he'd feel okay losing to Trump because he'd give it his all. And that didn't go over well. Watch this.
This is not just about whether he gave it the best college try, but rather whether he made the right decision to run or to pass the torch. That is the most important decision for him to make.
And while the calls for the president to step aside has not reached critical mass, the longer it drags on, the worse it is for Team Biden. But those who back his leadership say this election should be about policies, character, and not personalities. Watch this.
This is not a beauty contest. It's not a Grammy Award contest. It is a contest of who stands with the vast majority of the people of this country, the elderly, the children, working class, the poor. And that candidate is obviously Joe Biden.
Now, those calling to oust Biden are pushing for Vice President Kamala Harris to replace him, but she has repeatedly dismissed those calls, saying President Biden will lead the ticket.
Let's talk about the actual role that he's doing right now. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Washington. Other NATO leaders are coming because Biden is hosting this NATO summit. But how does all of that play into the question surrounding Biden's fitness?
Yeah, well, Biden is hosting the world stage on his home turf, so this is a chance to showcase himself as a global leader and perhaps a way to reset his campaign and change this damaging storyline. Biden is expected to use his steadfast support for NATO and its allies to contrast his vision against his challenger, Donald Trump. Take a listen.
I'm about to host the NATO nations in Washington. We put them together The world's looking to us. Not a joke. The world is looking to America, not to carry their burden, but to lead their hopes.
Now, it was under Biden's leadership that NATO membership expanded, making the alliance more powerful following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, Biden will meet with NATO allies and stakeholders, and it'll be capped with a high-stakes press conference towards the end of the week, where he will be under tremendous scrutiny. Any stumble, any flub could either fuel more pressure from within for him to step aside or show that he still has his fastball and what it takes to lead. Either way, this is not an ideal scenario for Democrats to have this anxiety just weeks before their convention and 4 short months before Election Day.
Okay, thanks so much, Richard.
You bet.
All right, folks, you heard Richard reference that internal debate within the Democratic Party. So let's dig deeper with Aaron Regunberg. He's in Providence, Rhode Island. He's a progressive Democrat and a former Democratic state representative. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Aaron, I wonder if we could begin with the breaking news this morning, which is this lengthy letter that's come out from President Joe Biden. It is strong in its wording, it is defiant in its tone, and he remains committed to staying in the race. I wonder what your take is.
I mean, I was not surprised by the letter. Again, this is how it works. The president is going to be 100% committed to staying in until the moment if and when he decides to get out. It's disappointing for all of us who are incredibly concerned about our chances of beating Donald Trump in November with this nominee that he is digging in so much. And I thought there was no reset in that letter of the message. There was no laying out, this is how we're going to beat Donald Trump, which is what everyone's concerned about. There was just you're stuck with me. You're not getting rid of me. And there was also some pretty sort of breathtakingly, I thought, dishonest and cynical lines in there. There was a whole portion talking about the open democratic process and how it would be democratically illegitimate for him to step down. Mm-hmm. It's very obvious that Biden and his team blocked anyone of substance from running, and they refused to debate, right? There's no one who honestly thinks that if we'd seen that debate performance last fall, Biden would have won a single primary. So it's clear that he's digging in, and if there's going to be a change, it's going to have to be because the Democratic Party, Democratic voters, activists, and leaders in Congress and otherwise step up and say, this is for the good of the party and the country. We need you to step aside. And we're starting to see more of those voices. There are some of those voices going public, which takes a lot of courage. And there's even more. We hear lots and lots of reports of folks who are concerned behind the scenes, and I'm hopeful that more folks will find the courage to step up and go public with their concerns.
Aaron, let me ask you about how things have shifted so dramatically in just a few days. So you have the debate, then you have damage control, the Stephanopoulos interview, these appearances in Wisconsin and other places. Then you have this letter come out. And a real rallying of the troops, at least some of the troops. Is there a real substantial conversation taking place behind the scenes with the Democrats that you're speaking to? I mean, what is the concern if he stays in?
I think there is absolutely a very substantial conversation happening behind the scenes. And there are folks who are trying to shut down that conversation. And again, as someone who has been very critical of the way the Republican Party has been so slavishly devoted to Donald Trump, no matter what he does, I think it's really great that the Democratic Party is willing to have this conversation. It shows that we are not a death cult like the Republican Party. And it's worrying that there are some, voices in the party that are trying to push us in that direction. I think that there's, one of the talking points that's being used to try to shut down debate is to say there's no chance Biden would step aside, so we have to get in line. I want to be clear. If and when Joe Biden is nominated officially as the Democratic nominee and we actually have no other alternative, then I will be shutting up with all my critique and doing whatever I can to support that campaign to beat Donald Trump. That is what every Democrat cares about right now. But to say that there's no off-ramp when we have weeks and weeks until the convention and months until the election is it's crazy to me. It's nuts, and it's not a 0% chance that we can win with Joe Biden, but it is a very low chance right now, right? It's not just the debate. Joe Biden was consistently behind in the polls before the debate. We were in a position, the Democratic Party was in a position where we needed to do more than just the status quo if we were going to win. We needed to make up ground. If you're going to do that, you need to have a candidate and a campaign that can aggressively deliver its message, aggressively prosecute the case against Donald Trump, get out there, do live interviews every single day on YouTube, on podcasts, getting out to the voters. And it became clear through that debate that I think Biden does not have what it takes to not just stay the course, but to make up the ground as we need to do.
Aaron, let me jump in because we have run out of time, and I do want to get this last one in there with you very quickly. What does Joe Biden need to do to win your confidence back? You and the colleagues who are concerned about him. Is there anything he can do?
I mean, one test that top congressional Democrats, Jim Clyburn, Nancy Pelosi, others have put out there was that Biden needs to do a whole series of live interviews to show that he is fit to remain the nominee. We just learned this weekend that that the live unscripted interviews that Biden did after the debate were actually scripted, that the campaign gave questions on condition for interviews to happen. And the two interviews after the debate, one of the radio hosts who accepted those questions actually just lost her job. She's being held to a higher standard than the president of the United States. So it's very concerning that the test he was given, you don't cheat on a test if you're confident you can pass it. I think if Biden can do a series of live unscripted performances to show that he has what it takes to, again, deliver that message, make up the ground that we have lost, then we'll shut up because we just want to beat Trump. But right now we haven't seen even a fraction of that.
Okay. Aaron Regunberg, thank you so much for your time and for your insights.
Thanks for having me.